everybody, how's it going? I am going to try to get either one or two short videos out so that I'm answering some YouTube comments and some asks. And there have been a lot of kind of side conversations going on, things people have sent me. So I am still working on the Operation Lead the Walkers Away, but again, that's taking a lot of extra work on the front end. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through and answer some of the things that have been sent to me. So we're going to start with YouTube comments here. We'll start with this one. If Carol did end up giving Justina an idea to fix the situation, it would solidify my opinion that Carol told Beth to kill Dawn, just like she told Andrea to kill the governor. That's super interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. And, I do think that pretty much everything that's going on is some sort of parallel or foreshadow or, callback, of course. So I hadn't really thought of that as an actual callback, which I did say here. And someone answered, "Oh, damn, that would be something. I'm so used to Carol problem solving with fire explosions herself, such as David and Karen, Terminus, Saviors, etc., that I never considered this angle. I didn't either. So super interesting. It'll be fun to see how it all plays out, right? So that we finally know what is and isn't in parallel. So thank you for that. In addition to the PPP thing, which was so astutely mentioned by another commenter here, they actually do allude to Rick's brother in this episode as well during Carol and Antonio's conversation when he's checking her shoulder. Carol mentions that she has a friend who had a brother in Barcelona at the turn. That's a Rick's brother reference. They have specifically said that he isn't coming on the show, but they did indeed reference it. Sometimes we get Beth tunnel vision, but this and PPP were actually big things to do with the other universe mysteries that appeared in this episode. Yes, agreed. And here's the PPP comment right down here. Hi, Music Box. Did you notice that when Daryl left the Rubik's Cube at the statue, there is a jacket or something with PPP on it? It's yellow and blue. In Swear 706, Tara finds a white card with PPP on it when she returns to the bridge and realizes Heath has disappeared. So, yeah, thanks everybody who sent this in. I honestly did not notice the PPP when I first went through it. I just glazed right over that. But Gladriel Jones is really good at that, and she has all kinds of theories going on about the PPP and what it means. But let me first address Rick's brother. Yeah, I did notice this. I forgot to mention it in my original analysis, but I thought it was really interesting. I did have someone ask me if they thought, this was actually going to be a storyline they brought in for Carol, and no, I don't think so. Aside from that, the biggest thing for me is actually the way she said it. I mean, even if we didn't know that they weren't doing this as an arc, she said that it was somebody she knew before the turn. So it would have been a long time ago. Um, and I also wonder, I mean, this is sort of wondering in hindsight, but you remember they had Michonne's friend in Scars, Jocelyn, who came in and kidnapped Judith and took the kids and ended up being kind of evil, because that was somebody she knew before the turn. I almost wonder if that too was a nod to Rick's brother, and we all kind of missed it. But either way, I do think it's just a nod. I mean, they gave it to somebody else. This is way more specific than Jocelyn because it was specifically Barcelona for Rick's brother. But they didn't give it to Rick, they gave it to Carol. And yeah, I really do think it's just a nod to something that happened in the comic books. I don't think it'll end up um, being an actual storyline. But that said, it could also be a hint at something else because even in the trailer, there's a part where, and I can't even remember if they said it. We might have already had it, but he said that the caravan was headed toward Barcelona, right? Um, so maybe some part of the show will happen in Barcelona. And it could have been also sort of a foreshadow of that just to mention Barcelona. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So yeah, super interesting. Now about the PPP thing, I actually, me and my fellow theorists had a big long conversation about this, and I was gonna maybe do a post about it, but I know that Gladriel Jones is putting one together, so I was kind of waiting for her to do that. And I know that she just hasn't gotten around to it, but she's working on it, kind of like I am with the Operation Lead the Walkers Away. But what I am gonna do, Hearts and Ewoks sent me a video, which is not mine and which is not a TD video about PPP and Heath and somebody else's theory about it, but it's pretty much exactly what Gladriel Jones has been saying for quite a while, and it's really interesting. So what it boils down to is the idea that there are spies that are working for the CRM, and Heath may have been one of them. And that those spies, and the same with Devon, who was in Tales of the Walking Dead, he also had a PPP card. And that they may have been CRM spies who are, uh, reporting back to the CRM about different communities. And, um, it's an ongoing theory. It's something that hasn't been answered. It's just been constant in the background. And if you watch this video, I'm not going to go into all of it. I only watched it once, so I'd probably screw up the details anyway. But he's got a lot of evidence for it, and he's pulled out a lot of little clips over the years that are relevant to it. So I'm going to encourage everyone to go watch that. Um, and, in terms of Beth tunnel vision, I mean, you're right. But the other thing is that we do think here, why don't I just so here's part of our conversation. And Galadriel Jones was just giving her thoughts on that video. It was sent to me, and then I sent it to her and WD Way. And then I just asked, okay, my next question is, do we think Beth could be a PPP card-carrying CRM spy when she returns? Might account for her being with a villainous group, and given what you've theorized about Pope and the Reapers being a CRM offshoot or bounty hunters working for them, and Leah being part of them. So again, this was like a really big, long conversation. Um, we've wondered for a long time what was up with Pope and the Reapers because they came in, they were hunting Maggie. It was never really explained why they were hunting Maggie. So one of Gladriel Jones's longtime theories is that Georgie, who, Maggie was, left to be with and help set up communities with her and everything, might have been somebody who defected from the CRM and is helping other people and communities be self-sustaining so that they don't need the CRM, but that would obviously be a threat to the CRM. So maybe the CRM sent Pope and the Reapers to take out Georgie and Maggie, and we don't know really what happened to Georgie. Her and Maggie hadn't been in the same place for a while. But in terms of all I'm saying is that that could be true if this whole PPP spy CRM theory ends up being correct, then maybe it backs up her theory that Pope was also like some sort of mercenary that was working for the CRM, and that's why he was after Maggie. And then, in terms of Leah being a foreshadow of Beth, she was with a, quote unquote, villainous group, right? That was linked to the CRM when Daryl found her. So, we're just kind of going back and forth about this. Um, Galadriel Jones has thought for a long time that Devon came from Europe and just ended up in Nova Scotia. And she's just kind of showing on the map how that might have been the case. Um, let's see. She says, this is definitely the next logical question because on a related theory, I think the Reapers were a contract reclamation team. If you watch the video, it talks about reclamation teams. We see some of that in Rick's storyline in The Ones Who Live. Sent to deal secretively with threats so as to contain the CRM's identity. Major General Beale was majorly paranoid, and when dealing with people he viewed as serious threats and also very capable, it makes sense that he'd send outsider professionals so that in case they fail or it takes them a long time, he can disavow them and no information pertaining to the actual CRM has been revealed. This is when she talks about Georgie being a former PPP who went rogue, for example. So, anyway, if you want to read all of this, just pause the video. I'm not going to read through all of it. And then I also talked about how we learned recently that Dead City is going to go to France to shoot. It's going to be one of their filming locations. And I just said, I also wonder if this could be responsible for why Dead City ends up in France. Could someone recognize Maggie and kidnap her into the CRM in some fashion? And then she's taken to France, or, of course, we've got Herschel. He could definitely be part of it. And so let's see, we're just noticing that we're seeing a lot of season 10 and 11 templates play out. Um, like they're following, there's hints to the fact that those were foreshadowing, and now we're kind of seeing what they might have meant. Go ahead and pause this if you want to read through these comments as well. She talks also about Lance from the CW and how he pretty much talked about an alliance with somebody, right? And it has to be the CRM. It really couldn't be anybody else. So anyway, I'd forgotten about the Home Sweet Home template. Um, that's really interesting because if you remember in Home Sweet Home, Maggie and Daryl had not seen one another for a while, and then Herschel was kidnapped, and they basically went together to go find him, and they did. He was younger then. That might be a foreshadow of what happens. What if, the CRM or somebody from that, organization, whoever it is, takes Herschel. And so Maggie goes looking for him, and that's how they end up in France. That would make a lot of sense too. And that would be a, or like, what do you call it? It would be the symbolism of the template from Home Sweet Home playing out. And of course, Maggie and Negan were really at odds then. Now we have Maggie and Negan in Dead City. So it all just kind of lines up and makes sense. And that's what we are basically talking about here. Let's see. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to read through all of this, but you are welcome to pause the video if you want to read through our comments here. We're just hashing things out back and forth. So that's all just to say that the PPP thing is actually really a big deal because it's another clue to something that's been going on since season 7 at least. I mean, I think, they've been planning the CRM for much longer than that, but that we've definitely seen since season 7. And they're still throwing hints down and they're still showing us that it's around and it's still in play. And I do believe, we've believed for a long time that the CRM is linked to Beth in some way. Like at Grady, when Dawn says, somebody's coming to get us, they said we just have to survive here and be cool until they come to get us. I mean, I really think she was in contact with someone who was telling her that. It made it seem like Dawn was just an idiot. Like, what an idiot are you to think that we're getting saved? But I think she really was in contact with someone who was telling her that. And it would make sense that it was the CRM telling her, we can't do it right now, but eventually when we get around to it, we'll come get you. And so that's why what Dawn was holding out for. And if that's the case, there's a very good chance that Beth is in with the CRM somewhere. Or maybe she used to be and now she went rogue, or maybe she's one of these spies. I mean, we don't know, but we do think that they're definitely setting this up for something in the future. So thank you for commenting on these. Definitely something to pay attention to, right? All right, next comment. Roberto giving Justina that compass also heavily reminded me of Glenn and Maggie with the picture he had of her. I'm not sure why it gave me such a reminder of that scene, but it did. Maggie telling him she won't be separated from him again. If they're getting paralleled to Glaggie, then Roberto is definitely screwed. Yeah, it could be. Um, Also, the olives might be a reference to season 2 Daryl with his scene with Laurie that you mentioned, where he calls Laurie olive oil. But that's most likely reaching. Yeah, it could be. I'd forgotten about that olive oil reference. So it could be. But yeah, thank you for your comment. All right, what else do we have? We had the Rubik's Cube. So I've picked up on a couple of things this season. The symbolism's everywhere, LOL. So I noticed at the end of the first episode of season 3, Daryl thought that Carol was taken by the bad guys, and then at the start of episode 2, he finds her and found out that she hid from them. And I immediately thought of your theory of how we might see them do a repeat of Consumed, that Carol gets taken by a group and Beth is in that group, but not really involved in the group fighting against them. Like, do they know that's one of our theories? I was thinking, wait, does that mean our theory won't work anymore because they would be doing the same thing in a season, Carol getting kidnapped? But then I saw that Carol was okay in episode 2, and I also noticed that only 2 characters in Team Family that knows that Beth is every bit as strong as any of them will be the only 2 characters in her return arc. And the first in TF to find out that Beth is alive is kind of brilliant because Maggie and Rick and Michonne never saw how tough Beth is and how they underestimated her. Meanwhile, Carol got to see the other side of her, the side that would do anything to protect the people she loves. And yes, she didn't physically see that yet, but she knew that it was Beth that saved her life, and she definitely knew that she fought people to get the medicine she needed. I like to think she overheard one of the police officers say she took down Gorman. Yeah, that would be cool. The one more thing I'm really looking forward to see young Daryl's backstory. Like every time they show glimpses of it, I'm like, yes. Now the full scene, please. Right? They're dripping it out so slowly. I have a feeling that the scene we're going to see is going to be what Daryl and Merle was talking about in the woods in season 3 when Merle left Daryl to fend for himself when he was a kid. Probably, and I actually hadn't thought about that. What we'll actually see. Yeah, it would be interesting if they do end up doing some of the, because we don't have very many of them. There's that they talked about in their past, and the only other thing we have is uh, Daryl telling Beth about that dealer that punched him in the stomach and he threw up. It would be interesting if they actually act out the scenes that Daryl has talked about before. That would actually be really cool. I'd like that. Also, I love that we're getting Daryl's backstory in the same season Beth might return. Like, talk about seeing a character redemption and development arc all the way through, and just before he reunites with the love of his life. I really hope Gimple brings our girl back this season because Daryl needs her now more than ever. The way he's swearing every line and almost robbed Justina and Roberto, haha. And even saying that he almost robbed them. Remember that one of the things him and Merle said is that the whole reason they were with the group, which was Lori and Shane's group before Rick got there at the rock quarry, was because they were going to rob them. So yeah, they might be playing that out in little ways too. I just know that was intentional and 100% Norman. Like, he's telling us through Daryl's body language that Beth is right there. I see it when him and Carol talks about home because their next destination has to be where Beth is, right? Before they go back to the Commonwealth with Beth and her people. I just know that they're going to have awesome transportation to get to the Commonwealth from the way they have been teasing with Ash's plane in season 2 and the failed attempts to get back home. Also, when they were sailing at the start of the season, it just felt like they were sailing towards Beth, even though they didn't get far. But that was interesting, as almost they are saying Beth is right in front of us as we're watching season 3. That is all. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, sure. Thank you for all of your thoughts. Really interesting. And the other thing I was going to say about Carol getting kidnapped is if Daryl ends up going back to France. And again, the main reason we're thinking that is because Dead City is going to be filming there and there might be some sort of crossover. But it would also make sense, actually, if Carol got kidnapped and taken back to France, and that's why he went back to get her. I mean, that would make sense in terms of the season 5 template, right? Of course, in season 5, he was going toward Beth anyway, but Carol ended up in the same place. So he was going for both of them at that point. So yeah, really interesting points. And thank you for your comments. Um, Nice video. I totally agree with Leah and Isabelle, and I'd add Connie to the list of failed love interest. It seemed like Daryl liked her, but she just saw him as a friend. Connie was an outgoing, confident person, so she would have asked him out if she liked him like that. Poor Daryl, the closest he ever got to main show on-screen romance was when that one Reaper blew him a kiss. He never even kissed his sort of girlfriend Leah, which I thought was weird. They said it, even if it wasn't COVID, they wouldn't have a kissing scene. Beth coming back honestly seems like the only way he'd be happy. Agreed. And yeah, they blamed it on COVID a little bit, but yeah, they said that they knew how sensitive the fandom was, and so I think they were. I mean, obviously they had him kiss Isabelle, and they didn't mind about the sensitivity then, but I think they were just easing us into it a little bit because that was the first real sort of romantic thing they'd done with Daryl. So yeah, good point. They effectively shut down Carol in this episode. That nope felt very pointed and said more to the audience than to the characters. Connie and Beth are coming back are the only options. No one new that they've introduced seems like a love interest. Agreed. I got off the Carol ship after the prison fell. It definitely felt like it was shut down to the audience. I did like Connie and Daryl because it didn't feel forced, but if Connie came back now, I think it would. Yeah, I agree. That would be forced. I shipped them at the start, but it seems like she just thought of him as a friend since nothing happened. I agree. I like Connie and wouldn't have minded her and Daryl together, but now at this point, if it was going to, but now it's at a point where if it was going to, it would have already. Daryl knew Isabelle for like 2 weeks and kissed her. Doesn't make a move on Connie for 2 years or more. Same with Carol. It would have happened already. And to your point, Connie would definitely be the type to make a move herself. And for the note line, it was said almost disdainfully, which would be out of character for Daryl. I think that was more Norman coming out and breaking character a bit and talking to the audience. He has never been a fan of the Carol ship. I haven't watched the video yet, but regarding the flashbacks, the little boy in this one looks no older than 7 to me. I also was able to find that monkey toy stuffed animal. It came out in 1980. The car in the background is a 1983 Chevy. This all points to Daryl being a lot younger than most people seem to believe he was for some reason at the start of the apocalypse. Still a large age gap with Beth, but not 20 years. Yeah, agreed. I really think that he was meant to be in his late 20s as the show started. So he still would have been about 10 years older than her. Maybe 12, but yeah, definitely not as much as people are saying. Not that it really matters, because as we said before, the age gap really isn't what people make it out to be, but it's a good point. Yeah, so thanks for doing that research for us. That's great. Thanks for pointing out the Heron stuff, as I actually wasn't familiar with that. My biggest takeaway this episode was the entire boat scene with Carol, just so much to digest with that one. Yeah, that was like a loaded conversation. Daryl's line of none of them are coming back was super pointed. He definitely wasn't talking about the other girls being given up to Alcathar, though all on the surface that's what he's saying. He's talking about none of the people he's lost are coming back, and it was said so pointedly that it's definitely the writing trick of opposites. What he said is not what's going to come to pass by the end of this. Someone is coming back. I agree. I agree. The volunteer thing, Daryl looks at him around that time, but it made me think of how Beth volunteered to walk up and stab Dawn, that the chose to do something to stop Dawn, but of course she was shot. The volunteer thing. I'm not sure I know what you're referring to there. Um, there's a lot of dialogue using gone, that's true. And these darn clocks, yeah, I think we're all gonna walk off into the sunset talking about the darn clocks on TWD. Let's see, what else? Oh, this is interesting. Looks like a dirty yellow shirt on young Daryl. I didn't even notice the color of the shirt he was wearing. And I replied here, given that he's running from the trailer, he could be said to be escaping something. So I wonder if that's meant to be a parallel to the season 5 flash of Beth running in her yellow polo. I didn't even think of that, but that's actually a really cool observation. So we're gonna have to pay attention to that. Is that everything? I think we got everything there. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call it there for today, and then I will do another video with the asks in it. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all of your comments and YouTube interactions. I hope everyone's having a great week, and I will be back in a few days with another video. All right, talk to you soon.